I live in a duplex with paper-thin walls. As a result, I've been subjected to my neighbor's latest crotch spawn screaming at all hours of the night. There's something about a baby wailing inconsolably that drives me right up one wall and down another. Still, as much as I wanted to scream at them, I knew there wasn't much they could do. At least, that's how passive I was on the first night. On the second night, I found myself pounding on the walls and screaming at the neighbors to silence their fuck trophy. I half expected them to call the police, but eventually I gave up and slept on the couch in the living room. Even as I drifted off to sleep, I could hear the faint screaming on the other side of the bedroom wall. By day 3, I was pounding on the neighbor's door, to no avail. They weren't home. Even still, by that night the baby was screeching on the other side of the wall. I called the police. Despite my claims of the child screaming every night for most of the week, they didn't even bother sending a car. I left a post-it note on their door telling them to silence their kid. It was still there when I left for work the following morning. Day 4 came and went like the other ones before it, though I have to admit that the screaming wasn't as constant as it had been on the previous nights. I called the police again and told them I was pretty sure they were neglecting their kid, but just like before, I was told I could file a complaint downtown. No one bothered showing up. By day 5, the screaming had all but subsided. As I put in my earplugs for the night, the crying had died down from screeching and wailing to periodic bursts of screaming with long periods of silence. I hated the lack of sleep, but I felt terrible for the little tyke, especially when I headed off to work the next morning and noticed my post-it note was still on my neighbor's door. I called the police one last time, and honestly I have to wonder what good they are at this point. An officer finally showed up at the property and did a health and safety check. The front door was unlocked. What he found inside chills me to the bone even as I write this. Knowing now what I didn't know then leaves me feeling like a selfish monster. My neighbor had killed herself a couple weeks prior and left her newborn son in the pack and play. That poor child screeched and wailed for help for 5 days before it finally succumbed to hunger and dehydration. They found the poor thing in a puddle of its own fluids across the room from its dead mother. For 5 days, a child starved to death while I was so concerned with sleep that all I did was complain and leave passive-aggressive post-it notes. I suppose that's why I'm not at all surprised that I'll wake up some nights to the sound of loud crying on the other side of the wall. No one's moved into the unit since the previous tenant was found. But if anyone deserves to be kept awake at night by a screaming child, it's me. If you made it this far, I hope you'll follow me on Twitter at KingSpook Creepy.